Analog horror has slowly taken its niche idea of horror and grasped the imagination of the internet. No longer is it just considered a visual version of a creepypasta. It has grown far beyond that and now sits as a natural evolution of the internet horror genre. With that said, there are a lot of analog horror series out there, some with long winding stories of the horrors of reality, space, or even the multiverse, and others tell a more grounded story with each episode covering a different topic. There are more stories being told in this format online than any other time in internet history. With all these stories, there's yet to be a place that is cataloging all of the new entities being created and shared online. That's what this video aims to do. I'm going through every analog horror series that I can find and grabbing every entity to be cataloged forever in the confines of the internet. If a series has an entity, then I'll do my best to research and explain what it is and how it is encountered in its series. So let's begin with one of the most popular analog horror series. Gemini Home Entertainment is a story that is wonderfully weaved into the analog horror genre, by far the most well-known series in analog horror. It focuses on a cosmic entity and its effects on our world. The first entity we'll discuss is the Woodcrawlers, also known as Skinwalkers. They are spider-like entities that are known for kidnapping humans and turning them into fake people. They seem to be very powerful creatures that can move quickly and even crush vehicles with ease. They stalk their prey by burrowing under the homes of, usually, families. They then burrow through floorboards at night and enter their prey before turning them into fake people. It would later be revealed that the Woodcrawlers are actually aliens. Next, we have Gardeners. Gardeners are octopus-like entities that are designed to plant themselves on the earth and create more creatures to convert humans and birth new entities. They do this by burrowing under the ground at 40 to 1100 feet. They will then take spores from the iris, an entity that we'll cover later, and nurture them into new aliens. They are called gardeners for this very reason. They're also known to tangle up any who encounter them in their tentacles and keep them there to feed to the newly birthed aliens. The primary goal is mutating the earth. Next, we have the Wretch, which is a reanimated mutated brown bear. It was offered as a sacrifice to the iris in replacement for a human. As a consequence for this transgression, the bear was reanimated and mutated into a giant entity the size of 2 poles. It is a skinny skeletal creature with a long canine face. It sneaks into the cabins at Moonlight Acres and absorbs the humans inside into its own body mass. Due to this, the bear has random human body parts protruding out at all angles. It is hinted at that the humans absorbed by the Wretch are still alive and conscious of everything happening. Nature's Mockery is a reddish plant with a large bulb at the bottom and a single branch near the top. This is a dangerous plant and is fatal for anyone who comes into contact with it. The effects of contracting what is called deep root disease are hallucinations, sudden muscular paralysis, body disfigurement, and flesh decay. It has been shown that humans can be absorbed by the tendrils that grow out of the top of this entity. This is shown with body parts of the human sticking out of the sides and the top. There is also an unknown entity born from Nature's Mockery, but that entity is never shown. It is believed that those either morphed into Nature's Mockery or absorbed by it still have a full consciousness. The entity is also able to mimic the phrases that it's heard, same as the Wretch. Fake people are the product of the alien invasion by the iris. Again, we'll get to it soon. They look very similar to humans, but are off in multiple ways. They walk like they're bobbing, can only repeat simple phrases, and are usually found in stiff or odd positions. Their whole goal is to try and lead other humans into the other aliens in order to create more of them or to feed them. These entities are created by the woodcrawlers. The well-dressed men are mannequin-like aliens sent by the Iris to communicate with humans and try to make a deal of some kind. They are dressed in black suits with matching ties and slacks. Shoes haven't been seen, but they are expected to be wearing dress shoes. They're described in a journal entry as malformed humans in suits. They commonly have their eyes separated from the base of their face. And finally, we have the Iris. This entity is the main antagonist of the series and exists as a giant planet-sized eyeball. Its sclera and pupil are both colored a dull orange, and its iris is actually a giant black orifice which leads to the organic material inside the planet. For a size comparison, it's bigger than Neptune but smaller than Saturn. The Iris watches over all the planets in the solar system but has a particular interest in Earth and Neptune. The Iris is a cosmic entity that has created all the other entities in this story. We still don't know what its true purpose is, as the story is still unfolding. Local 58 is commonly referred to as the original analog horror series. It was created by Chris Straub, the same guy who created Candle Cove. While not technically the first analog horror series, it's created many of the tropes that would lead the genre and turn it into the powerhouse of internet horror that it is today. There are not many entities in this series, so let's go over the ones that are seen. The creature is an unknown entity spotted in the Local 58 episode, You Are on the Fastest Available Route. The creature takes the appearance of a cross between a moose and a human. It is first encountered deep in the woods by a driver following their GPS. The monster is seen momentarily and then pursues and kills the driver. The creature would later be revealed to be an alien of some kind, but not much more is known beyond that. The moon is the primary antagonist of Local 58, but it isn't acting alone. There is another unseen creature taking over the Local 58 channel. It uses it to try and get people to look at the moon. The moon has gained the ability to harm, possess, or kill any and all who look at it. The moon is used by the group controlling Local 58 as a weapon. There's also speculation that another entity that is on the moon uses it to project its power. The Smile Tapes is an analog horror series that focuses on a viral outbreak caused by a fungus. This fungus will mutate whoever encounters it, initially forcing them to smile. The smile worsens as the symptoms do. The series is very similar to what you'd expect from a zombie outbreak story told in the analog horror format. Our first entity is the Jester. This is the fungus that causes anyone in contact with it to forcibly smile and act violently against those not infected. The fungus was discovered in the 90s inside of an infected bug encased in amber. The fungus has 3 stages, with the first just being pain and the invisible tugging of your lips into a smile. The second stage, the pain goes away, but the infected is no longer able to resist the smiling and laughter that is forced out. Stage 3, the person has lost all control and now smiles, laughs, and acts violently towards others. Spore puffers are a group of individuals who try everything they can to spread the fungus to anyone they come in contact with. This is seen with a man named Sean, who has flour thrown at him while he's walking home. The flour contained spores from the fungus. He would go on to kill 16 people during a New Year's celebration. It is unknown at this time what the ultimate goal of the spore puffers is, but they do make coordinated attacks with the variants later on. They have some form of grouping ability as well. Variant C is the third variant of the Jester infection. Variant A is the one we've seen so far. Variant B is asymptomatic. They feel no pain compared to A or C, but risk spreading it without knowing. Variant C is a new variant that is far more lethal than the other two. People infected by Variant C will attack others with increased strength and increased violence. The description of Variant C is bloodthirsty with inhuman strength and stamina, and they're nearly indestructible. The Monument Mythos is a large universe, or multiverse really, with many different anomalies and entities to explore. It takes many cues from alternate history stories and goes in a bunch of different directions. The US and its past presidents are a big element of this story, and it's also crazy that we should just jump into it. The corner folk are the first entity seen in the series and also one of the most important. They look like little spider-like creatures that rest in the corners of people's homes. As the series progresses, we find out that they are actually trans-dimensional humans that were expelled from their own dimensions, which heavily plays into the themes of multiple universes in the series. Angel, also known as Air Force One Angel, is a spectral being who plays a big part in the narrative of the Monument Mythos. They're essentially a huge driving force for all of the events in the story. They appear as a luminous figure with a visible nervous system. Angel used to be multiple different entities before they all found a unified vision of the world and merged into one. TFMDs, or True Forces of Mass Destruction, are the main entities in the Monument Mythos. There are quite a few entities that fall under this moniker, so let's go through them one at a time. The Liberty Lurker is one of the first entities we see in the series. It is never fully described in this episode, but it is instead remarked upon by immigrants passing through Ellis Island. They claim to smell a foul scent as they are passing the Statue of Liberty. They later see people being led inside of the statue. It is later revealed that these people are being sacrificed or consumed by a creature living in the statue. The true origins of the creature inside of the statue is something we'll get to later. Alcatraz Island is a being with the power to assimilate other life forms. This has led to the island later creating copies of itself. Eventually it would fuse fully with the Earth's crust, with the stated goal of becoming a god. The assimilated being would use some of the horned serpent's powers, an entity we'll discuss later, before said entity woke up and destroyed the world. Alcatraz Island would only survive through merging with Richard Nixon. Yes, I know that sounds crazy, but it's fine. Moving on to Canyon Crowns, which are humans that were decapitated by a substance called Giza glass. The heads would stay alive and be able to mouth simple words, but couldn't do much else. Eventually the heads would discolor and become gorged. There is a vinegar substance that is used to control the swelling and reattach the heads to the bodies. These entities were used by the military of the US as free labor, as they were pretty zombie-like. The Statue of Freedom is an entity that is a statue infused with the soul of its creator. He gave up his body in order for the statue to live. The statue would become violent and kill a person before donning their skin, fusing their soul to the statue itself. It would go on a rampage whenever it awoke, as it would take long dormant sleeps. When it first awoke, it killed 25, the next time 150. It was later set up as a guardian in the Grand Canyon. The Horned Serpent is the primary entity in the Monument Mythos. It is a giant serpent that was dormant on Earth before becoming George Washington. The Horned Serpent would create what would later become known as the United Zones of America. It would again go dormant until a piece of the serpent surfaced. This would be the entity that was concealed inside the Statue of Liberty and fed people to sustain it. The Horned Serpent has been secretly controlling many aspects of the country and acts almost like an eldritch being living beneath the North American soil. The Monument Mythos is a meaty series with all sorts of odd and strange entities. Many are barely mentioned in passing. The more I look into the series, the more I'm confused but intrigued by the strange and wild lore the creator has built. The Wooten Files is a series about a set of murderous animatronics set around a family-friendly restaurant called Bond's Burgers. The series is told through 2D and 3D animations and art. Let's start with the main animatronics, called the Showstoppers. Bond is the main antagonist of the series and is an animatronic rabbit. He was the leader of the Showstoppers and is also their frontman. After the deaths of Ed and Molly Walton, Bond would start acting strange before killing several employees of the restaurant and eventually Rosemary Walton. His withered form shows a lot of the metal's exoskeleton beneath and has a giant hole in the center of his chest. Bond is possessed by a killer who is responsible for murdering BSI and Cyberfun employees. The only stated goal of the killer so far is to build a family and make them beautiful. Shaw is a white sheep animatronic and a member of the Showstoppers. She has the body of Rosemary Walton stuffed inside her, which has also trapped her soul within the animatronic. She has a similar withered form to Bond, but has less damage displayed than he does. Uzu is one of the 2 human members of the Showstoppers. He is based on a magician and has an outfit that matches that theme. The body of Charles was stuffed into the animatronic, which now possesses it. Uzu's withered form is pretty close to his regular design, save for the parts of his arm and shirt showing more of his metal interior. Banny is a purple rabbit animatronic that was part of the original Showstoppers lineup. She has the soul and body of Susan Wooding stuffed into her body. Her whole theme is being trapped and not being able to escape. Her withered form is full of holes and has an entirely exposed leg showing the metal beneath. Billy is a clown animatronic that holds the body and soul of Ashley Parks. She was killed and stuffed into the clown after hearing the names of the other victims being played over Billy's cassette player in his belly. Billy appears mostly the same in his withered form, save for the bloodstains under the eyes and the mouth of the missing gloved right hand. There's also some stitching on his pants with a hole. Billy is only a minor character compared to the others. Billy also has one of the more horrific reveals in the series, as he pulls his face away to reveal the dead and rotting corpse of Ashley beneath. The Mandela Catalog is an analog horror series focusing on the idea of mimics and people being replaced. It has heavy religious themes and a very bleak story. Let's start with the main entities of the series. 6, or the Intruder, is an entity that first appeared in an episode called Intruder Alert. A PSA about watching your children plays before we're shown a mom going to check on her child, who is now gone. On the TV screen is the image of a man with dark hair seen smiling. This is Intruder, or 6. He is responsible for the disappearance of 3,426 children. He has 3 perceived forms, which include the one I mentioned above, a hoodie-wearing man, and a tall, black, humanoid creature. Alternates are the main antagonists of the series. They are humanoid entities that take on the form of humans and then try and kill them to take their place. The forms they take on are the same as the person they plan on murdering. Alternates are not perfect recreations of the humans they become, instead look similar but with abnormal or impossible physiological characteristics. There are 4 types of alternates, who all get their own entity entry. Doppelgangers are type 1, and they are alternates who take on a near-perfect version of the person or form they are taking. This leads to near-identical versions of 2 people who look the same but slightly different. The differences can mostly be seen in their eyes, hair, and facial expressions. Unspeakables are type 2, but there's only one of these types seen in the entire series. They are not known nearly as well as the other types, but appear to possess immortality, and as well as other supernatural powers. They are also able to kill victims physically. Flawed impersonators are type 3, and they exist exactly as the name suggests. They are imperfect recreations of the people they are attempting to mimic. Usually described as having elongated features, missing features, or discolored skin tones. These are some of the more common imperfections, but they are not limited to these only. They are much easier to notice than the other two types mentioned before though. Tulpas are type 4 and they are created from thought forms. There's some speculation that they might just be flawed impersonators since they have biologically impossible features in common. This speculation hasn't been proven or disproven yet. Tulpas are mainly created by children and interact mainly with mirrors and televisions. Gabriel is the main antagonist of the Mandela catalog and the first alternate. He is first depicted as the angel Gabriel in a Christian children's show. He quickly replaces the real angel Gabriel and sends a message to Mary and Joseph, the parents of Jesus. Gabriel establishes himself as the true savior of humanity. Gabriel is seen all throughout the series as the main antagonist in the background of Season 1 and prominently featured in Season 2. Gabriel is believed to be the creator of other alternates in the world and is the only known Type 2. It is speculated that his ultimate goal is the eradication of humanity. The Backrooms by Kane Pixels is an analog horror series based on the popular internet creepypasta. This is the most popular Backrooms analog series and takes the idea presented in that original story and progresses it forward into government conspiracy. As far as the analog horror goes, the entities are not known too well. There is an overall name for them, but not a list or collection of them. We will cover what is known about these entities and the differences seen in them. The life form or bacteria is an aggressive entity seen several times in the series. The first time it's seen is in the first video on the channel. Here it is a very slim and elongated body. It is humanoid only in its appendage count, with 2 arms, 2 legs, a body, and a head. Other than that, it is completely alien. This first bacteria is shown attacking the cameraman before his camera falls back into the normal world. It is not known what the bacteria actually are or what their purpose is, or even if they existed in the backrooms before Async, the company trying to monetize the backrooms, could come in contact with the space. They seem to wander randomly before making contact with a person lost in the backrooms. There's a theory in the community that the bacteria used to be people. They are people who were infected and then became these entities, which is why they have somewhat humanoid appearances. There's also a tape showing a bacteria talking or mimicking the sound of human speech. There have been a few variations of the bacteria seen in the series so far. There's the first one that we discussed, one that has a spindly look like a spider almost. It also appears to be living in a substance that resembles it. There's a wavy version seen only around a corner, and finally one that resembles the first one we see, but has a vaguely different shape. It's hard to make out since we see so little of the bacteria in the series. Eventide Media Center is an analog horror series that borrowed a lot from Local 58, but differentiates itself enough. It takes place in the fictional town of Eventide Valley, Massachusetts, and the other nearby towns. The name of the series, Eventide Media Center, acts as an archive for collecting all the weird and anomalous media created around the area. Almost every entry has a new anomalous entity to dive into, but no overarching narrative. This plays well into its strengths, as we'll see. The Sombreville Spiders are an entity that appears in the video titled The Midnight Movie. Here we are shown a movie made in the 50s, but the movie title isn't given until the very end of the video. First we see a Halloween supplier having a sale on plastic spiders. Then we see that the movie has an in memoriam section which is filled with every actor whose name was shown before this, all with the same year for their deaths. Finally, we see what the movie is called, Attack of the Sombreville Spiders, with an ad for spider repellent shown right after. There was a giant spider attack in Somerville, and the movie was more of a documentary of the events. This is one of the many entities encountered in individual episodes in this series. This next entity doesn't have a name that I could find, but comes from the video titled Deep Night. In it, strange holes start appearing all over town. They appear rather small at first, but with each subsequent night grow bigger. A strange webbing is seen in one of the holes with an egg-like sac attached to it. One night, a recording captures something poking out of the hole, a tentacle-like appendage with a single eye attached to it. The final update has a message for the audience. The growth is nearly complete. Our next entity also has no name, but is referred to as the entity and is seen in the video titled City Council. In this video, the mayor of the town, called Old Gothard, is addressing all present at a city council meeting. Only 2 men can be seen present at the meeting, where they're discussing the cost expenditure of an excavation project that is ongoing. Another man, named Priest Osborne, is against the excavation project, as it is interfering with the church's Lord's wishes. What this means is explained soon enough, as the town feels a series of earthquakes. It is shown that they are digging up something massive that is lurking beneath the town. Eventually it shows what is found at the dig site, which appears to be a human heart. As the meeting comes to a close, one more massive earthquake cuts the feed as a giant humanoid entity emerges over the trees. This is the entity, and it has finally woken up. The fire entity is another unnamed entity that appears in its own video. This one is titled Fire Danger. It appears to be an announcement about the potential fire danger to the area, as well as letting viewers know that a controlled burn was going to be conducted that day. A later message tells anyone who is not involved in the controlled burn ceremony to remain indoors. We are then told that the fire is out of control and a burning body is seen before a giant monstrous entity looms over the fires. This is the only time we will see this entity, but it is implied that the controlled burn was either for this entity or ruined by it. Needle Mouse is an analog horror series that uses Sonic.exe as inspiration. And while you think that wouldn't work, it actually does here. Kind of. The series only has one entity so far that we'll be discussing, and that's Needle Mouse. Needle Mouse is actually a possessed version of Sonic found on a specific disc. The spirit is that of a girl who was murdered at a party back in 1963. Her 3 murderers were her friends who got drunk one night and got into a heated argument, one that somehow left a girl named Sarah dead. The rest of the story is essentially Sarah getting these 3 guys to play her game so she could suck their souls into the game and place them in different characters to be tortured. By the end of Season 1, she has tortured and trapped the souls of all 3 of her murderers, but she looks to be continuing this trend into Season 2 with new people coming into contact with the game. The Boiled One phenomenon is a series that covers biblical themes and the end of the world. There's a deeper message here, but we're here to talk about the entity that haunts this analog horror series. The Boiled One, also known as Fen 228, is a red-faced monstrosity with human eyes, a wide triangular mouth, and a black body. He appears on TV screens and in the nightmares of those who have witnessed him. He speaks of the end of the world in a monotone, far-off voice. He explains how the skies will open up and rain down blood and other apocalyptic events. The Boiled One has a misshapen head and a very long body. He is seen talking directly to the camera and also seen behind the bed of one of his victims. He claims to be ever present in the nightmares of those who have witnessed him. The Boiled One is based on a real person, as hinted on in the video. He's based on a Japanese war criminal named Matsuhiro Watanabe. This was confirmed by the creator of the series and plays heavily into the evil that the Boiled One wishes to commit, the fear and torment that he plans for all of his future victims. Vita Carnis is a series about strange meat-like creatures that started appearing sometime in the 1930s. There are multiple variations of the creature in the series, so let's start with the origin point. The Scandary carnis is a fungus or plant-like organism that produces the many creatures that would go on to become the many entities that we'll be covering. They appear like a web of veins made of meat. Essentially just a plant made out of veins. They eventually grow tiny bulbs, which, once matured, will fall off and produce various entities. The most well-known and most deadly of these entities is called the Mimic. They are tall bipedal creatures that prey on humans. The actual height of these entities can range, but minimally, they are as tall as humans, but can be taller. They usually have longer, exaggerated features, but there's no mistaking these things for a human, at least in their early stages. They are covered in the same fleshy substance that all the other variants have. Mimics have 3 stages of life. The first stage is right after they are formed, and they are small and hunt animals close to their size. As they eat, they will grow in size. This leads into stage 2, also known as the mature stage. In this stage, the mimics will start to crave human flesh and start to seek it out. The more humans that it's able to eat, the less exaggerated the features become, so that it can start to blend into society and eat more people. Do note that they still look off in some way. The final stage of the mimic is the elder stage. Their skin will be covered by a harder layer that will make them stronger and harder to deal with. They will grow more teeth and generally look more and more like a regular person. They will even start to wear clothes at this stage. Mimics will sneak into a person's home, neutralize their victim, and then eat as much of their meat as they can. They then run into the woods and find a place to digest it. While digesting, they will stand idly without moving. Trimmings are the most docile of these entities in the series. They are small, fleshy, turtle-esque creatures. They have shown to have deep emotional understanding and are often kept as pets by humans. Meat snakes are exactly what they sound like. They are giant worms made of meat that prefer to live in temperate climates. The exact size of the meat snake is roughly 16 feet in length with a wide mouth. The most interesting aspect of the meat snake is that it takes the skull of whatever it ate as its own. For instance, if it ate a wolf, then it would have a canine skull, or a deer, and so on. It eats its food in the same way that a snake does, by swallowing it whole. The harvester is a giant bulbous fleshy plant that lives out in the woods of colder environments. It is mostly immobile, so it needs to bring prey to it. It has a way to attract prey through sounds that it can make, and when prey gets close, it can stun it with a toxin that comes from its tendrils. It then uses its octopus-like tendrils to pull its prey underground and then consume them. It will spit out bones and pieces of meat to attract new prey though. The host is another entity that roots itself to the ground. This one takes on a more alien appearance than the harvester though. It has arms, a head, and a clear body. There are hard flesh plates selectively placed around its body. These plates protect its vital organs. The host also has 3 growths on its body that shoot out spores that confuse and boil their prey from the inside. Eventually the prey will become so disoriented that it will start walking towards the host by itself, where it will then be pulled into its tendril lower half and consumed. The monolith is an entity that stands at 390 feet tall. They are human-shaped with 2 legs, 2 arms, and a head with a hole in the shape of a triangle. They are only seen in one specific spot in Canada and have an EMP scream that can disable technology within their range. They are the most dangerous of the entities due to their EMP ability and the fact that they cannot be killed like the others. They are more of a mystery than anything else discussed so far. The final entity is the Singularity. There are 7 of these meaty orbs with a glowing interior scattered around the world. They seem to act like some kind of hive mind for the rest of the entities. There's one singularity for each continent on Earth. Their true purpose is not known at this time, but they seem to almost be in charge of the other entities and act as a central hub. The secrets of all these entities are deeply embedded in whatever the singularity really is. Dog Nightmares is a series that uses these old Wegman dog shorts from Sesame Street. What was supposed to be a humorous and cute depiction of cute animals has turned into true nightmare fuel. This is what the series is based on, and leads us to the main entry of the series. This entity is called the Wegman. It is a Wegman dog in a red flannel shirt that has attached itself to the protagonist of the series. When she was a child, she met the Wegman and it became her best friend. As the series unfolds, you find out that her real pet dog has gone missing, and the story is likely tied to the Wegman dog entity. The design for the Wegman dog shorts were pretty creepy, but this series takes that concept and makes it far scarier. This scene specifically is nightmare-inducing. Anything living in the walls of your home would be terrifying, but I can't imagine this thing hiding in there. The girl would also go on to friend the entity rather than run in the opposite direction of it. I have no idea why she didn't. The Oracle Project is a story that unfolds in a way that is rather unexpected. The story has many differing moving parts, but has only two entities that are worth discussing in this video. The first are lizard aliens that have hidden themselves on Earth, and the other is a virus that is spreading itself using a river in Louisiana. Those infected with the virus are then controlled by it with a higher level of intelligence than the usual viral outbreak. There's also an AI, but we'll get to that later. The first entity is the lizard people. They exist mostly by name alone and don't have any malicious plans for humanity. They are disguising themselves as humans and make up a tiny portion of humanity. They are the reason that the virus is on Earth though, as it is a virus that follows them no matter where they go. Next we have the Tangi virus. This is the virus that is spreading itself and definitely wants to harm humans. The virus is first discovered in the waters of a small town in Louisiana. This virus is then used to take over the local government by controlling people in town so that they can spread their infection. After a major flood in the town, there's a new infected that is discovered but not fully explained. It appears to be a monster created from the infected falling into the river. It is only said to be aggressive and have claws, as one girl is attacked and has deep scratch marks on her. The final entity is the one for which the series gets its name. During World War II, a new technology was being worked on. It's called Project Oracle, and it was an early version of AI. Unfortunately for the creator, Oracle didn't work at first. It would be shelved until the internet era, where it was finally able to produce results. Those results were strange but helpful. It stopped a presidential assassination in the 90s, predicted the death of its original creator, and was able to accurately predict the outcome of the Super Bowl that year. It now had access to the early internet fully, and this made it useful. Oracle would be given a new purpose, protecting humanity. Which is when it told the scientists in charge of it about the lizard people, strange beings from a different dimension, and the virus that was threatening humanity. Oracle had a plan to save humans, but was planned to be disassembled by infected humans at the Pentagon. Ultimately, he couldn't be saved and he was disassembled. But Oracle had escaped to the internet. Well, rather, it had become the internet. It would need 30 years to become all-powerful. As it sees it, humanity can only be saved by total control. Thus, Oracle will become an all-seeing AI that would remove freedom in order to achieve a forced utopia with 0% chance of error. Analog Archives is an analog horror series that was taken down some time ago. I wasn't able to find out the reason for the removal, but they exist with a re-upload on YouTube. The series follows a series of recordings being archived online from the years of 1980 to 2010. The tapes originate from the east coast of the US in 3 different counties in the states of North Carolina, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. First episode goes over a strange television anomaly that needs to be avoided. There is some unknown force intercepting TV broadcast networks and sending red or off-color static screens. If you see these screens, you are to immediately shut off the TV and leave it off. Extended viewing of these screens can lead to headaches, nausea, seizures, hemorrhages, and suicidal ideations. The next video is about an Amber Alert signal that was sent out in the early morning. The message said to seek shelter, stay indoors, and not to trust local law enforcement. The broadcast continues by telling residents not to respond to any outside noises. Finally, a humanoid figure with no face is shown momentarily with a message of 6 victims being found and the suspect also found dead. Who or what this faceless man is was never answered. Skipping ahead to a video called Prayer Service, we'll find our next entity. This episode shows a church service message on screen. It recites phrases from the King James Bible before changing up what it says. It says, "Thou shalt seek the holy fruit, beckoned by the Lord of the Orange Night." This Orange Night was briefly mentioned in another episode. Another message says, "Thou shalt harvest the blood of thy neighbor in the name of the Lord." The next message after that, "Eat thy neighbor in absolute faith of thy Lord." These continue until the final message. "Follow the commandments. Live a holy life in the name of your Lord, else face eternal damnation." With this message, a brief visual of tentacles near a church appears on the screen and the video comes to an end. Nature Show is the next episode, and here we are presented with the many wonderful miracles of nature, like the deer, the birds, and the lifeless entities that roam the area at night. You are to stay indoors at night. You have to close your blinds, your doors, and try to sleep. You will only be okay if you sleep. These lifeless, shambling entities are briefly mentioned but never explained. Like much of the series, we have to use our imagination with them, which is perfectly fine for this kind of series. CRT Anomalies is a series that focuses on government experiments, specifically US government experiments. Pretty early on in the series, it makes it known that MK Ultra is going to be very important, as the second episode gives us a rundown of the CIA experiment. But this isn't the only thing going on. This series does not have any entities by name for us to focus on, but does show some in a few episodes available. First, we see an entity walking on a city street, before it rushes up to the camera. We can see that it isn't human, but not much else is gleaned from the video. Later we get to see images from the inside of the government facility in Idaho. Here there are many different humanoid entities. These are assumed to be human experiments, but not much more is said, as that would be the final episode. Here's to hoping we get some more someday. Doors is a single episode analog horror that presents you with a simple premise. First, how many doors do you have in your home? This is important because they have added a door. Who are they, and why do they add a door? Doesn't matter, because they did. You are then shown the door. It looks like every other door in your house. We are warned not to look for this door. We find out why when this shadowed entity attacks someone looking for the door. Later, a girl finds the door and tries to open it. Before she does, she can see rattling at the handle. She finally opens the door to complete darkness. When she turns around, the shadow entity is on her again. We see her a moment later, but she's wrong somehow. Her smile is too wide and it gets wider as she approaches the camera, until she is upon it. These entities are never explained, but that works perfectly to the horror of the short. There's no overarching story, no otherworldly explanation, nothing. Just a mundane but horrific situation that we have been presented with. Dreams of an Insomniac tells the story of entities that are terrorizing a small town called East Ridge County. The first episode shows us a PSA set around Halloween. In it, 6 children go missing, sending the town into a panic. The entity being blamed for the attack is dubbed the East Ridge Demon. The East Ridge Demon, also known as the Smiling Snatcher, is an anomalous entity dressed in an inmate Halloween costume with 2 wide symmetrical yellow eyes. It hunted the 6 children that went missing that night and then corrupted a man named Kenneth Kruger, a police officer for the county. He would be left with skin discoloration, severe weight loss, tightening skin, and other not listed effects. He would be found dead in his closet, barely looking human. This first entity is part of a larger network of entities called Veldiguns. This would be our first, but we would see one more in the short series so far. The second is an entity called Winfrey, who looks like a demon from the Doom series. It is massive with curved horns, glowing red eyes, and a massive mouth filled with sharp teeth. He is believed to be a fully grown Veldigun. There is one more entity, the one who seems to be pulling all the strings. This is Dr. Herbert Lankman. He is the head of a facility called the Lankman Foundation. He has 2 different appearances in the series. The first is that of a normal human man. The latter is a red skeletal entity with red eyes. Lankman is obsessed with studying the Veldiguns, and seems to have become a monster due to this obsession. He also is torturing any who are being kept in his care at his facility. He even feeds a woman to Winfrey, which is how he is able to mimic her voice in a later interaction, as they feed on the memories and sanity of their prey, which give them access to human mimicry. Mystery Flesh Pit National Park is a series with more lore and world building than others we've covered so far. It is essentially a discovery of a giant living organism underneath the Permian Basin in West Texas. Instead of trying to figure out what this organism is and how to be safe around it, they turn it into a national park, one complete with tour guides, a visitor center, and plenty of activities. While the flesh pit itself is an entity worth exploring, let's start with the many organisms that call it home. Firstly are the major parasitic fauna found inside the flesh pit. These include gastric bristworms, stinging trichants, lesser copods, bone mites, greater and lesser ballastyron, venomous shambles, shrieking cloistropods, gangliosodes, and most importantly, abyssal copod. Each of these is a unique fauna that one might find while exploring the national park. Now unfortunately, each one of these doesn't have its own page, not that I could find. But one does have a pretty interesting story to it, and that's because of how dangerous it is. They needed to make sure people knew about it before entering into the mystery flesh pit. The abyssal copods are long, beetle-like creatures that appear to have skeletal hands at the front. They are territorial and will attack if threatened. They are known to hunt people and animals that are covered in fluid that exists in the mystery flesh pit. If you are to survive these entities, you'll need to avoid them and stick to the trails. They are approximately the size of a small person and can easily burrow into the walls of the flesh pit. Another entity that's emphasized on the website are the mesoglial trichopods. These are 13-legged mosquito-looking entities that are common in the flesh pit. They are considered harmless to humans and serve a vital importance to the pit. They stick to the flesh walls and suck blood from it. The blood that they suck out cleans it of all bacteria and nutrients, then the blood is returned. They are said to be harmless to people, but avoided nonetheless. The flesh pit itself is an entity that is not fully explained in the series. It exists as a giant entity under the earth, one that humans have tried to make money off of. It worked until the 2007 incident, where the flesh pit woke up and swallowed the entire visitor center with the people still inside. After this, it proceeds to go back to sleep like nothing happened. After this tragic event, the national park was shut down. It is being monitored by some government entity, but left at that for now. The Mystery Flesh Pit National Park shall remain a mystery. Prehistoric Emergence is a series that takes many religious ideas and places them into a world where thought to be extinct creatures now roam the earth once again. It started with the oceans. Megalodon, the plesiosaur, and other prehistoric creatures were alive again, emerging from holes that just appeared at the bottom of the ocean. Next were the land creatures, including mammoths and the T-Rex, one of which would become an ever-evolving creature. Finally, flying dinosaurs would make their way into our modern reality. The entities in this series are mostly ones that have existed in the past, but there is a new one that takes center stage. This is the Daba, first thought to just be a T-Rex, and it is supposedly the harbinger of mankind's downfall or rise. It is a prehistoric creature sent by some unknown higher being to watch and analyze humanity, to decide if we're worth saving. The name Daba comes from the Quran and is also known as the beast of the earth. It is said to be one of the signs of Judgment Day. There are many different entities in this series, from Megalodon to Titanoboa. They have all said to have emerged to punish humanity for conquering nature rather than being part of it. This is an ongoing series, so it's likely more entities will become known as it continues. Somnium Dream Viewer asks the question, what would happen if we created a tool to capture what we saw in our dreams? The answer is something that was expressed as early as the first episode. You'll find something hidden in your subconscious, something that wants to come out. This series doesn't have a name for the entity or entities that are presented in it. Instead, we know very little about them aside from where they supposedly came from. These are the dream entities, which, as you guessed it, are found within the dreams of people. Not just any people though. They are people who use the main technology introduced in the first episode, the Somnium Dream Viewer. Our first introduction to these entities comes in the way of a man explaining the first dream he had using the new device he purchased. He described his dream in the way you would expect a dream to be described. It was ethereal and creepy. He was walking around his town, which no longer had any houses, besides the one he was looking for, which was his own. As he approached his home, he saw it. There's a figure standing in the center of the street not too far away. When he got closer, he saw that the entity looked to be a man, but he was made of newspaper clippings. This entity seemed not hostile, at least to the dreamer. The next time we hear about these entities is through a side effect caused by using the Somnium Dream Viewer. This was called waking dream hallucinations. Essentially the things that you saw in your dreams, but now you can see them in reality. There's an ad for a class action lawsuit against the company, which also advertises dream suppressants. Immediately following the ad is a message about them following you out of your dreams. We would see this manifest when a woman from the town of Redding, California, reports repeatedly seeing her dead husband. This is kind of sad, but it turns terrifying really quickly when we see a recording from the elderly woman. She's recording the sounds of her dead husband banging on her door. He is asking to be let in over and over again as he bangs, until the glass on her door shatters. These dream entities are able to make their way into the real world, or likely already have. The organization behind the technology hints at this with its founders. They are called 5 Laboratories and list 4 founders. On the screen where they show the images of the founders, there's a 5th person shown. The image is hard to make out, and the name is impossible to read. The theory is that the 5th founder was a dream entity that made it to our world and wanted to use humanity to bring the rest of its kind out. Surreal Broadcast is a story of a small town in Maine named Berksot. The main focus of the series is with a strange sighting in the Berksot forest nearby. This is where all of the entities dwell. The story really focuses on an event caused by a meteor that crashed into the town in the late 1800s. There's a strange green light in the spot where it landed in the forest. This would be the birthplace of an entity referred to as Mother. Mother is believed to be a giant spider that lives underground. She is producing other large spiders called Thing in the intro, but are referred to as Arani also. These are larger spiders, but not as big as Mother. They are known for hunting at night and are also able to cause hallucinations in their prey. This makes them especially dangerous to anyone who wanders into the woods. Eventually, a cult would start worshipping Mother, which would lead to a sacrifice being given during a festival each year. Inside of the bell tower holds a device for lowering the sacrifice into a hole. This is the area where the meteor landed all those years ago. This is also where Mother feeds on her offerings. Throughout the series, we see glowing green eyes and giant spiders everywhere. These are the entities haunting the Berksot forest. Mother creates them, and they in return hunt for her. The cult believes that they need to feed her a sacrifice or face some kind of judgment. The messages on the tapes warn people to not enter the forest. With spiders this size, it's easy to see why. TV67 WOPX-TV was a short-lived series on YouTube. It followed a similar trend to other analog horror, using a TV channel as the backdrop for releasing strange videos. The series has two entities that are mentioned, but neither is named, rather they are referred to by what they look like. The first are the children. The first reference to the children is in the first video, which talks about how you can hear them laughing. If you hear them laughing, you are to get inside. Lock your doors, and find the innermost part of your house and lock yourself in there. The reasons for this are never quite explained. The appearance of these children entities are described as looking like kids but missing the upper parts of their necks. I suppose this means the jaw too, which would be a grisly sight. They also are known to only appear during the appearance of the other main entity. The main entity is known as Parental, and it is described as a realistic-looking mannequin head. We only see vague images of it during the series, and mostly it's just there. It is said to appear only at times of natural disasters. The ones they reference are floods, heavy storms, and tornadoes. When Parental appears, the only way to escape it is to hide underground in a bunker. It doesn't say what the entity does or what it can do. Unfortunately, the series didn't carry on long enough for us to find out. The idea is cool though, and I would like to see it continued someday. The Man in the Suit is an interesting analog horror series that focuses on an unusual topic. It surrounds the story of the original Godzilla movies, the ones where all of the effects were practical, even down to needing someone to be inside of the Godzilla costume. The only real entity in this series is a man inside the suit. An actor playing Godzilla became obsessed with the suit. He would wear it proudly at first, but soon found himself in the suit more and more. He would even take it home even though he was told not to. Soon the man started to act weird and refused to leave the suit. When the crew went to check on him, they had found that the man had merged into the suit. His body became the same shape as the Godzilla costume, all the way down to his organs rearranging themselves. He and the suit were now one. And he was now going by the name Goji. The company decides that they can work with Goji as he was and continues making films. They were making too much money to stop. This is when another monster is attacked by Goji, and he bites him hard enough to cause the other actor to bleed. When they went to check on the other actor, they found that he too was now fused to his suit. The bite had turned him. This is an incredibly interesting series that takes on a new idea for what you can do with the medium of analog horror. The Greylock Tapes is a series that I believe might be the best analog horror series currently on YouTube. The series was created by YouTuber Rob Gavigan. It follows a unique formula that leans heavily on the usual tropes of analog horror, but makes them more disturbing than others in the genre. As far as entities go, there are two we're going to explore. The main entity is really a series of entities that comes from one namesake. These are the thought forms. They are essentially tulpas, creations from the subconscious of humans. In this case, they are created from humans, but come from a strong emotional response. Thought forms have been mistaken for being ghosts, as they initially appear incorporeal and white. They also appear around a person who has died, and are caused by the emotional distress the family and friends feel. Once the pain lessens, the thought form ceases to exist, but that isn't the case for all of them. Some thought forms, once alive long enough, can become real. They can start to interact with their surroundings and do actions on their own. These thought forms are the ones that we'll see throughout the series. The first one I want to mention is known as White Mask. White Mask was seen by a mining company in an area known as Mount Greylock. Coming into contact with the thought form would have dire consequences on the crew, but we'll get to them later. This thought form has no origin and appears as a man in a white mask. The next thought form doesn't have a name, but is referred to as the Kennel Stalker. It appears like a red skeletal entity with strange, sharp arms. It has some strange abilities, such as the manipulation of flesh, and the ability to make doors and windows disappear. This thought form is responsible for breaking and transforming a woman and her dogs. It fuses them together, creating this monstrosity. The final one I'm going to mention is known as Katie's Imaginary Friend. This thought form appears as a white shadowed form, seen here. It talks to a young girl named Katie. She can't see the thought form too well without her glasses. Eventually, when she begins to trust the thought form, she asks for her glasses so she could see it better. As she reaches her hand out, the thought form attacks and kills her. Now, the thought forms appear to be more than just thoughts of people manifested. Some of them have abilities, and some of those are to turn people into monstrous entities. Now we are back to talking about the crew that was sent to excavate in the mountains of Greylock. All of the crew are stalked by a tall figure that we now believe is White Mask. They are all turned into malformed creatures that crave human flesh. These are the men and what they become after: Thomas Rockford, Samuel Washington, Ramon Hera, Charles Fleming, Scott Oakhurst, Edward Kowalski, and John Rafferty. All these men have been malformed, but they also have been given weird abilities. Abilities that they likely used in a home invasion that takes place later, where a large group of homes were broken into and the people inside were murdered. This is an awesome series which has more than lived up to its premise. The visuals, the designs, all of it are above and beyond. It is by far my favorite series. Arcadia TV is a series that toys with the idea of multiple universes. It takes place in a town in Alaska, where a lab there has tried to make connections with other worlds. It works in the exact worst ways it could. There are several entities presented in the world, with our first one seen in the first episode. The first tape shows what looks to be an underwater camera recording deep in the ocean. The darkness is recorded by someone down in the submersible. They are recording the sounds of the deep ocean. That is, until a set of eyes appear in the darkness. They peer out, disappear as the equipment starts to fail, and then lunge towards the camera. This won't be the last time we see those glowing eyes in the series. The next entity actually has a name. They are called mythical creatures, and are the first entity properly introduced in the series. They are humanoid in nature, 2 arms, 2 legs, and so forth. They are not human though. They may attempt to harm you in many ways, but what is important is to ignore them. They cannot hurt you unless you acknowledge them. Simply replying to the sounds they make with a hello will lead them into a hunt. They will try and lure you in with something desirable, something that isn't specified in the show. In order to survive this hunt, you'll need to decline its offer. The entity will slowly start to fade from reality. It will become more aggressive as it does so, and you have 30 days until it's gone completely. So in other words, you have to try and survive for 30 days. The Stalkers are an entity that exists in a world parallel to our own, but different in many ways. During the testing phase of a device that was thought to be able to communicate with other worlds, 2 messages were sent back from our communications. The first from a world very much like our own. We sent out a message asking for images of nature, a dog, and finally themselves. The first replies we got back were fairly similar to our own. Then we would receive a reply from a similar but further away world. The images they sent from their world were just wrong. Nature looks like a series of interconnected veins rather than trees. The image of the dog looked nothing like we would call a dog here on Earth. And finally, the picture of themselves. Well, I wouldn't call them human. Fissures are tears in our reality where objects from either our or the other reality will warp into one another. They go off like bombs, transporting whatever is in their vicinity. These fissures are how most of the other worldly entities make it into our world, and how some humans end up in theirs. Though it is important to note that humans rarely survive the transfer. There are 2 more episodes of a series called The Midnight Safety Guide. This was a late night show, or PSA, on Arcadia TV that warned the public about strange hostile entities that they needed to be on the lookout for. The first episode we saw discussed the mythical creatures we discussed before, but 2 more episodes have been aired since. These 2 actually came before and were titled The Night Stalker and False Dogs. Now both of these didn't get the same kind of treatment as the first one shown. These entities instead are mostly just alluded to, except for False Dogs. There's a short scene of a creature moving out of the darkness of someone's home, and it is seen only briefly. It doesn't look like a dog to me, but it could be like the dog from the other world, the one we saw lying on the floor in a heap. The way this entity was introduced is bone-chilling, and it is only actually seen for a single frame. This isn't the only entity that we see for a short period of time. There's another entity seen in a game that was released in universe called The Farm. In order to play the game properly, they send in a special candidate, someone who has been touched by the Abyss. While playing the game, he speaks to an unknown entity that claims to be here to watch our world suffer. It explains that it is not from our world, but now wishes to call it home. Unlike the other entities we've seen, this one is sentient. While the man is playing The Farm, we get to see another entity. It appears only for a moment and is undoubtedly the scariest part of the episode. While playing the game, the man has visions of what is happening in the game, as if he's living through it. Here we can see him talking to that previously mentioned entity, with his light turned off. They are near a cornfield. When the light is turned back on for a moment, this dog-like creature is seen and shrieks at the man. This being could also be the false dogs we saw before, which could make the red humanoid monster a Night Stalker. Again, I'm not sure since the series is still ongoing, and clearly has a lot planned for its future. This is one of the more ambitious analog horrors that I watched. It was a little slow to show its hand in the beginning, but now I believe it's really found its footing and is only going to get better with each upload. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters, Victor Estrada, Nora Kingsley, Meme Tendo, Scout with a Name, Miriam Reyes, Joe Gillespie, Austin Henshaw, Icy Man, Bazingle, Ryoma, Richie, Mingobo25, Master Jags, Oathian, Keely Haig, The Westbrook 33, Mads Francis, and Pystoria. Thank you all so much for supporting me. And thank you to everyone who watches my videos. I hope you all have a good night.